I am a trust fund baby is what everybody thinks online, because at this point I have been in business for 11 years and I started out as an Etsy shop, but actually took my business to over $16 million in revenue now. And funding all of that is very difficult, very complicated, but also pretty attainable. I started out with my maxing out my credit cards sort of self-funding era, and then I moved on to my utilizing business accounts, utilizing my business credit card and the funding that was available to me there sort of era. Then I moved on to exploring lines of credit and places I could get small amounts of funding to continue to grow the business at a steady pace while making big leaps like new warehouse, new storefront. And now I'm finally in my era of I know where I can get money, I know where I have lines of credit, I know where capital is available to me, and I can even borrow from myself if I need to keep the business running. So I'm kind of back to self-funding, but because we've gotten to this sort of scale, I have the experience to kind of be very surgical about where we're investing money. And it really allows me at this point to grow the business how I want, instead of feeling like I'm at the behest of whenever and wherever I can get the funds to scrape stuff together. I'm not a trust fund baby. In fact, I have funded my business through what is called bootstrapping. Bootstrapping your business is the idea of funding your business only with your profits. So a lot of businesses, startups, get venture capital funding, or people just have money in the bank to start a business, and that's not the case with mine. Like I said, I've been in business for 11 years. I started out as an Etsy shop, and I started my Etsy shop on my 18th birthday. So I literally went to Hobby Lobby, bought my art supplies, and started selling canvases on Etsy. I spent maybe $50 at most at a time. That was even a lot for me as a literal teenager. And when I started selling my hand-painted work that I put lots of hours into, I reinvested that money into more art supplies, more items. Eventually I started selling stickers, which are pretty low cost. They're also low price point, but at least I was able to sell a lot of them, and that helped me build up sort of seed money for my business. But from the time I was 18 to the time I was probably 24, I did not take any notable amount of money out of my business. The first time that I really spent money that was notable from my business was when I was 24, and I literally bought my house. I had been saving and reinvesting all of that time. Obviously, when you start small and you start at $50 of investment of supplies, it takes a while to build up the amount of capital that you need to run a now $16 million business. Along the way, I did, when I first started selling stickers wholesale and was selling 50 at a time, and I didn't have the money to buy $300 worth of each sticker design, maxed out all of my credit cards. I think that was something along the lines of $15,000 maybe that I had spent on stickers. Obviously, that isn't strictly bootstrapping, I guess, because I was getting sort of a loan in the form of my credit cards. But obviously anyone can get a credit card. You don't need to be a trust fund baby. You don't need a rich grandfather. You don't need a wealthy aunt who's funding your business. That is something that anyone can do. Yeah, definitely took advantage of my credit cards to keep the business rolling. It was all my personal credit cards, and so doing my taxes was of course a nightmare, but I maxed them out, and then I would get a higher line of credit from the bank, or a higher credit limit. And so then I was able to do that more and more, till eventually I got to the point where the bank was like, we don't really give people more credit than this, I think. And I was like, hey, maybe it's time to make this all very legit. And, got a business bank account, got a business credit card, and big tip if this is still available. I did get a credit card that gave me $30,000 interest free for the first year, and I took advantage of that at a time that it was crucial. I literally had the 30,000 sitting on the credit card until like the 2 weeks before it was the 1 year mark of having to start paying interest on it. I to this day have not paid any credit card interest, personal or business, and I really take that seriously because credit card interest is no joke. So I started using credit cards. Then I made it all official with getting my business bank account, getting my business credit card, taking advantage of the offer my business credit card gave me with that $30,000, which was excellent. And then something that I have taken advantage of are lines of credit. So that can be really helpful. It was actually hard for me to get a line of credit for a while because a lot of banks didn't really understand the nature of my business and didn't believe in the business model. Now that, and I've talked about this in previous videos, social media is being recognized as like a really powerful economic force. I feel like it would be a lot easier for me to do. But back in like 2019, they're like, this woman in her 20s is on social media, on TikTok, and thinks she's gonna get a $125,000 line of credit from us. No, ma'am. But yeah, lines of credit can be really helpful if you can get them. And then something I have used a few times is there are companies out there, I think like QuickBooks does it. Paraffin is like a company that I think maybe came up with this model, but Shopify offers it as well. They'll do like capital investments where Shopify will charge you a fixed rate for like a upfront investment through your Shopify store. So that's been really nice for me. I've done that a few times, and I know you can get like business loans and stuff, and you can get that at like different percentages. My bank also offers like lines of credit, but those are really good options for putting up a lot of upfront inventory investment and then being able to have some breathing room while you make the money back later. A couple of times I've had people refer to my business as a startup, but to me, the definition of a startup is having some sort of capital investment from somebody outside the business. But because I have bootstrapped the business, am 100% owner. And I'm really, really proud of that because that means I retain control of my business. I retain the decision-making authority for all things. And if I had investors to answer to, or somebody had equity in the company, they would probably want some input. Generally speaking, not everybody is that way, but and that can be really hard because, first of all, I make mistakes, and knowing that someone was holding me accountable for them when obviously no one is harder on me than myself would just be like stressful in a way that's not productive for me. But also I feel like I understand my business plan and my vision better than anyone else, and having to explain that to somebody would be really difficult and stressful. So I think that has been a huge relief to me. But I mean, that is an option if you're trying to start a business, is giving up equity or getting an investor who gets like royalties or returns in other ways. So I'm glad that I have not done that. Nowadays, I thankfully have taken enough out of, so I guess I should say, because I mentioned I don't take much profit. I do take some profit from my business. I keep it in my high yield savings account, my personal. I try not to invest too much because I keep it as something that I might be able to then in the future loan back to the business if I need to. And like, I feel like, oh, money is tight, or I want to make this big inventory investment. Try to keep that like separate though, because if I have money in the business bank account, it's burning a hole in my pocket and I'm gonna buy new inventory because I get so many cute samples all the time and I just want to keep trying out new products. So going forward, I have used Shopify Capital many times since 2022, I think four times, maybe five. And I have used my line of credit with my bank, and those are like both flexible. You can pay them back early if you feel so inclined, but considering that some of them have fixed fees, I wouldn't do that. But in the future, I plan to also just be able to continue to self-fund by using like past profits if needed, versus paying somebody either, like I said, equity, which I'm super not interested in, or even paying a fixed fee. If I could loan that to myself, then I guess it's loaning it to the business, not myself, but considering I'm 100% owner, that's how it feels. So if I can just kind of do that, then I can continue to fund the growth of my business, and save money on interest and fees. But just putting a lot of thought into it and comparing interest rates and also considering, I guess, just like the accessibility and convenience of it, I think is really important. Obviously, if you get a line of credit, the rates are lower. Also, just like figuring out interest rates can be really hard. So talk to the people that you are getting money from, whether it's your credit card company, whether it's your bank, or like Shopify Capital, for example, because they can give you a better understanding of interest if it doesn't make sense to you. Like there's obviously with like Shopify Capital, for example, they give you a fixed rate, but that's not comparable to like credit card interest or line of credit interest because that's all in like APR or whatever. And so like if you're changing the time period that the interest is assessed at, you have to make sure we're all working in the same units of measurement essentially, because interest is related to time. So you want to convert everything so you're able to compare. Anyway, I digress. The first time I actually used Shopify Capital was in 2022 when we were moving into a new warehouse. I had to pay for renovations. I was also paying to fill it up with new inventory. And I think there's like, I don't even remember how much money I got from them. And maybe it was like a $5,000 fixed fee or something, and maybe I got like $60,000. I don't exactly know, but looking back, like it's just funny if you think about people who go on Shark Tank and they have to go through all of this process to convince like a shark that they're worth it to get $100,000 or something, and they give away 10% of their company or something to that effect. 10% of your company is worth way more than, $100,000 if you keep growing the business over, years and years and years. So I'm very grateful that I was able to get $60,000 for a $5,000 fee essentially, because that $5,000 fee is honestly in the grand scheme of my revenue these days, pretty negligible, but giving away a percentage of the company would be extreme at this point. So it's nice to be able to take advantage of things like that. Just pay the interest or pay the fee, not give away equity. I'm super happy that that was something I was able to do and chose to do. I think if I had aggressively pursued more lines of credit with traditional banks, instead of using Shopify Capital or the line of credit that's sort of automatically built into my bank account, I might have been able to save some money in interest. However, the payback structure is not my favorite. Shopify actually takes a percentage of your daily sales automatically to pay back your loans, but it's only from your Shopify sales versus like a monthly payment that you're like kind of required to keep track of and is in one lump sum every month, is sort of how like the lines of credit are set up that I have explored. And so the sort of automated payback of Shopify is nice, or other loans that are structured that way. Like I said, QuickBooks and Paraffin do those as well. So I actually really like that, just for the ability of like constantly seeing where my finances are at because it's automated. But also the accessibility of a line of credit and the flexibility is actually like a lot slower and less convenient than some of these other more like tech forward companies. Like I said, Shopify, Paraffin, QuickBooks. So I've really enjoyed that and feel like it is actually worth like maybe a percent or two that is the difference, especially because like I mentioned before, some of these traditional banks have actively not come through for me. Like I've gotten close to getting lines of credit and then they eventually are like, the underwriters aren't convinced. And that's really discouraging. And so it also throws a wrench in your plans. If you don't have accessibility to funds that you thought you were going to have, and then you want to buy inventory in time for say Christmas, you could just kind of get screwed over. So I think kind of holistically approaching funding is really important if you're going for loans or lines of credit or things of that nature. Like I said, 11 years in business, it takes a long time to build up the ability to make $16 million in revenue. And that's all-time revenue. It's not like I'm going to do 16 million this year, although that would be nice. So being able to like reinvest has been fantastic. Obviously, I've taken money out for like my law school tuition and my house, but it's also like the more you reinvest yourself, the less money you keep. And just to be completely transparent, because people ask me all the time, like, how much profit do you make? Not much, because I'm growing the business so quickly. My profit is all sitting in inventory that one day maybe I will retain, hopefully. You have to be like really strict about like reinvesting and being smart about those investments if you are going to bootstrap a business. And that doesn't work for everybody. Something that I do really, really resent though is, like I said at the beginning, I will get comments online all the time anytime I broach the topic of expenses and how many expenses we have and how much revenue we bring in. People will, I guess, accuse, that's like a very aggressive word to use, but they'll accuse me of being a trust fund baby or having a wealthy parent, and they always say a rich dad, which is sexist. And that's not the case. Actually, my parents are business owners, but they have never given me money for my business. And they run a completely like different business that hasn't like really been beneficial for me, other than just like their like moral support to like learn about, I guess. So I just want to put out there that like I am super cognizant of like the advantages I've had in life, but it can be really frustrating and like invalidating when people are like, oh, of course this is easy for you because you're probably not even profitable. You're probably just spending a bunch of money to make money. And in fact, that's not the case. We have a very healthy business that I am aggressively trying to grow. Like, don't take that away from anybody. When there's a lot of ways to grow a business and you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. There's plenty of huge businesses out there that actually aren't profitable, and just take a ton of investor funding and then don't actually turn a profit. Even businesses that have been around for a long time, like Uber, I don't even know if they're profitable yet. So that is something that can happen, and it can happen with small businesses too. When it comes down to it, I think a lot of small businesses take the route I'm taking, which is bootstrapping, which requires that you be super smart with your allocation of finances. I am glad that I no longer use my personal credit card or credit cards in general to fund my business. But if you are smart about it, you don't have to waste any money on interest payments. That was really possible for me at the time because I was buying from US companies and buying items that are quick turnaround. So it's really easy to print a sticker and I could get them, from checkout to me within like less than a week. But if you're putting money on products that take, 5 weeks for production and 4 weeks for shipping, your credit card payment's going to be due before you can sell those items. That can be kind of hard. And so I took my time to graduate to that kind of thing. But now, because I've sort of worked my way up slowly, like I said, over the past 11 years, I can make huge inventory purchases, like $150,000 inventory purchase, like I'm doing this week. And that's what happens as you just snowball it down the hill, kind of slow and steady. I think it has been really helpful for me to have this sort of like somewhat steady ramp up to the business that I have today, because I've learned a lot along the way. I have realized what works for me and what works for the business. And I think just having that experience is invaluable, because I think if someone asked me, if I got a lump sum, let's say $1 million or something from an investor in 2021, I think I would have been scared and not really known what to do with it. But because I've taken my time to hone my decision making and figure out what products work and seen sort of how the business ebbs and flows over the course of a year, I feel very much like empowered with like the knowledge to make good investments. And obviously I'm not perfect and I've made a lot of bad investments along the way, but nothing that has really put a wrench in things to the point that we can't keep growing. And I'm really happy that every year has been better than the last. And I think that if you're very intentional about your funding, that is something that can happen. So I hope that this was helpful. If you guys have any questions about funding, let me know. My main message is this is something that's really attainable. I am not special. And like I said, I'm not a trust fund baby. I do not have like the secret access or something. These are things that actually, I feel like a lot of people can do, especially once you've like proven your business to a degree. So I really, really encourage everybody to feel like growing a business is something that you can do once you get a hang of it and figure it out. It's not just for previously rich people or already rich people. If you guys have any other questions, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow along for more business insights and all of that. And thank you for sticking around this long, because it is our 11th anniversary and I am so stoked that we have been around for that long. I honestly didn't think this was going to be my career when I started, and you can see my whole story that I've put in a different video talking about how this all came to be start to finish. But like I said, my overall message is like, this is something that you can do if you put your mind to.